everyone, welcome to my channel. So for today's video, I wanted to share with you guys my recent obsession, which is the Eldridge Liquid Lurex Eyeshadows. So if you guys have watched my channel for a while, this might be a big surprise because I am normally not a cream or liquid eyeshadow or even really makeup person. Like recently I filmed a cream blush roundup and I also filmed a cream bronzer roundup. And in both of those videos, I disclaimed that these are usually not products I actually like. It's more like I've accumulated a bunch of these because they've been so viral and I wanted to do roundups, but normally I consider myself very much a powder makeup person. I just find it much less finicky, much more controllable to use powder products. But surprisingly, I've been really in love with these liquid eyeshadows from Eldridge. So much so that basically I started with Anais and then recently I picked up these three. And since then I've been mostly just wearing these. And so in today's video, I wanted to share my thoughts with you guys about the formula that she has for these liquid eyeshadows, give you guys eye swatches of all of the shades, and then do a final look using one of them. So if you're interested in learning more about these liquid Lurex eyeshadows, then just stick around. So to start off, let me show you guys the packaging that these come in. So you can see as a really beautiful brushed gold top with the Eldridge emblem on top. And then you have a nice kind of heavy plastic container that also says Eldridge on it. To give you guys some swatches of the shades I have, this one is Anais. It's a pewter silvery sage shade. When I got this, I thought it would have a little bit more green to it, but on my lids, it definitely mostly pulls silver. Then we have Daphne. So this one is actually green in tone. You can see this has a really beautiful, almost golden tone to it. So it's very warm green. Next, we have Titania. This is a blackened antique gold. Really beautiful for a multi-dimensional holiday look. This is a really great one and done shade. And then we have Anjelica. So this is, for me, an excellent, just very everyday friendly shade. You can see that this is a neutral pinky tone. And here's a close-up of these. I like that the four I have are all quite different, so I tend to use them on very different types of makeup days to give a different vibe. One thing I do want to note is she does have slightly different formulas. So these three are a higher shine formula with more glisten to them, whereas Daphne is more of a smooth metallic formula. So in terms of what makes these formulas so special and why I've been reaching for them so much, first off, if you are new to liquid eyeshadows, you might be wondering why even bother, given that, you can do a very easy, similar one and done look with just a single powder eyeshadow. So for me, what's really great about these, especially the higher shine formulas, is that you can get a really beautiful multi-dimensional glistening look on the eye without having to worry at all about fallout. So these are really easy to apply with either a finger or with a brush, and they stick immediately to the lids, so you're not going to have issues of the glittery shades sort of falling into your eyes. Especially if you have sensitive eyes, these are a really great way to go. Also, if you're doing sort of a simple makeup day where you don't want to pull out a bunch of brushes, the fact that you can apply these easily with a finger, I think, is a really nice, convenient way to integrate them into your everyday routine. In addition, even though I personally am actually not usually a one and done shadow person, like if I have a palette, I will always go into a bunch of shades to create a very multi-dimensional look. I feel like all of these look really nice on their own. Especially Titania has enough of a deep base to it that when you blend out over the lids, it doesn't necessarily look like you just have one shadow on. And in general, I think what makes Eldridge's formula stand out on the market is that a lot of these formulas have multiple sizes and colors of glitter in them. So they look much more interesting on the lid than, say, my McGrath liquid eyeshadows. That's a really great formula too, but I think that's more of kind of a uniform glitter that they have in those. So whereas those look nice, they aren't going to give you that same sort of multi-dimensional effect. Also, I think Lisa Eldridge is just a master at picking shades. Like all of these shades just look really, really gorgeous and unique on the lids. It's the subtle undertones and textures that really make her formula stand out. So with that overview out of the way, let's get these eyeshadows on my lids. So I've brought you guys very close for this eye swatch portion. I'm going to just do one on each side, remove, and then repeat. So let's start with Anais. This is the OG one that kind of got me interested. And to be honest, I normally prefer going in with a brush. In fact, my favorite is the Refer number 33 brush for applying these shadows. I find that's the fastest and easiest way to apply them. But for today, I'm going to first show you guys a finger application just so you can see how easy that is. And then for the final look, we'll go in with a brush just so you can see both options. But what I love about this is it's so easy to blend these in. Like as you can see, that was very quick, very easy. You don't have to worry about there being any harsh lines on the edges. And Anais, as you can see, is a very pretty everyday shade that still has enough interest to it that you could also use this for a more formal occasion as well. Let me actually bring down the brightness a bit as well so you can see that a bit more clearly. So here's just one layer of Anais. If you're someone who likes cool tones, I think this will be right up your alley. With just one layer, it gives that really beautiful foiled effect on the lids. Now, one thing that is very nice about this formulation is you can definitely build it up if you do want more intensity. So that's what I'm going to do right now, just so you guys can really see that shade. And you can see with these additional layers too, you get a tiny bit more of that greenish hue, that sage green. So again, I'm just going to tap this in. And this does set relatively quickly, but I do find that you get a reasonable amount of play time. It doesn't harden as it sets, so even after it's fully set, you can still move it a tiny bit. So there, as you can see, that is a really pretty couple layers on. Really, really gorgeous shade. I really enjoy this shade quite a lot. It's like nothing else I have in my collection in terms of either liquid or powders, just because it has that very unique hue that kind of combines a bit of green with a bit of silver. I think this is also quite similar to her shade Emily, which is sort of a neutral minky shade, at least if you just apply one layer. But once you build this up, it becomes much more silvery and sage. So there we have Anais, super, super beautiful. So on the other side, I'm gonna put on Daphne because this is the other greenish shade. So if any of you are huge fans of green, hopefully this comparison is helpful. Though as you can already see, these are very, very different greens. One is warm, sheer, and effervescent, whereas the other one is much more cool, silver, and sparkly. So there is Daphne on the lids. This one is really pretty as well. So I don't have Lauren in my collection, which is a true gold, but I think that is probably also similar to this in texture, where it is more of this sort of shimmery metallic finish versus this high shine foiled finish. So you can see a lot of the difference between the two. On this side, you have a lot more dimensionality with this one shade. It almost looks like I have multiple shades here, whereas on this side, it's very clearly just a soft wash of this one shade. Now, depending on what you're going for, you know, one or the other could be a lot better. One thing I do like about this shade is even though it's not as in your face, it does have a beautiful elegance to it, especially with the soft gold to green shift. And now I'm going to go in with another layer just to show you guys how this looks built up. Again, the buildability is definitely one of the selling points for this formulation. And for me, very important as well, because I feel like I usually like a more intense eye look. And one of my major issues with cream or liquid products is I feel like they tend to be a lot more finicky when it comes to layering in comparison to powder. For powder, I really never have to worry about how many layers I apply. But as you can see, that was super, super simple, and now you have a much more opaque layer on here. It almost looks like gift wrap, I would say at this point. super pretty. And in case you're curious how these look in full eyeshadow looks, I'll show you guys some pictures here. So first off with Anais, you can see how it looks having it on the lid and the lower lash line with some eyeliner. Because I've had this one the longest, I've worn it quite a lot. And then with Daphne, you can see how it looks with a full look as well. I have one where I just wore it all by itself with some eyeliner, and then another look where I actually put on several eyeshadows underneath from my Yucca palette from Natasha Denona. So I set it up with some mattes, and then I just used this as the one shimmer. You can see it's a fairly subtle look. It sort of blends very easily into the mattes and has that sort of monochromatic vibe to it, but still really pretty. Overall though, I think if you are pairing these with mattes, it's probably more interesting to go in with a high shine formula like Anais rather than Daphne. For me, Daphne is really great for kind of a one and done look like this. So here I am with bare lids again. So now let's go into Titania. I actually wore this recently in my Lisa Eldridge haul video where I shared both these products for the first time and also some other products I hauled. So definitely check out that video if you haven't already and you're interested in Lisa Eldridge. You can see in that video as well a look using Titania where I complete the look. So there we have Titania. Really, really pretty. As you can see, it's similar to Anais in terms of being that higher shine, very foiled finish. So if you put just one layer all over the lids, it does have that sort of strong, glowy glisten to it. It also has that multi-dimensionality because depending on how the light hits it, it looks a little bit deeper or a little bit lighter. For me, I was inspired to pick this up because I saw Lisa Eldridge use this for a really quick one and done holiday look, and it looked so beautiful. So I had to pick this up for myself. And as you can see, it's really easy to use. I will say of all the shades I have, this is the one that I most think works well with a brush. So, I mean, it looks really nice with just that finger application, but because it has a bit more of that blackened base, it does benefit a little bit with just a bit of brush work on the edges. And if you do want to add some mattes, I think this one is a really good candidate for that as well. But just to show you guys the full impact, let me also put another layer on. Just lightly dab this in. So there we go. You can see that was very quick, very easy, just gives that fully opaque effect on the lid. Really, really beautiful shade. Now, in terms of the dry down for this, I find that, especially if you put multiple layers like this, it is nice to kind of hold your eyes like this just for a second to let it fully dry. I personally don't have issues with creasing with this product, but that said, I do think, letting it dry fully before you move your eye around a lot is, in general, a good principle. Now, on the other side, let's go in with Anjelica. So similarly, I'm going to first just start with one layer. One thing I will also note about the buildability is part of why that's so important for liquid eyeshadows is it's hard to apply the exact same amount to both eyes. So usually what I do is I apply to both and then I go back on the side that has less eyeshadow and add another layer. And so that's really important just to get an even coverage. And so when you have liquid eyeshadows that don't build up well, then it can be really hard to get that evenness. So here we have just one layer of Anjelica, and you can see on my skin tone, this looks pretty natural. This is a really great everyday rose gold shade for me because it sort of just looks like an amped up version of my skin tone. Let me actually turn down the brightness so you guys can see that a little bit more. But it still definitely has enough pizzazz to it that it still looks kind of done up. Again, you can see kind of the difference of just having one layer versus two layers in terms of the level of opacity. And now let me just go in with another layer. I also like that you don't really have to wait very much in between layers. It does just build up on itself very nicely and easily. So here we have that second layer on. So with two layers on, this is definitely looking a lot more glittery. I would say this shade is a little bit less multi-dimensional compared to this side just because it doesn't have that dark base. It's overall a pretty light shade in terms of its reflect. but still super shiny. So even though you can get this effect with a powder eyeshadow, I would say you would probably have a lot more issues with fallout. Now, in terms of longevity of these shadows, I do find that they last pretty well. I normally just go in like today, putting these directly on my lids without any primer. I would say that if you are doing this for a full day where you really want to make sure it's budge proof, a primer will help in terms of just ensuring there is no creasing and that it lasts the full day. I find without primer, if my eyes are feeling a little oily that day, it can be a little hit or miss by the end of the day. Personally, I do have very watery eyes as well, so that's another consideration. I find that sometimes if my eyes get super watery, the product will start getting a little bit into my eyes and irritating them. So for me personally, I mostly wear these on days where I'm kind of having a no makeup day and just want something fun on the eyes and don't really want to work too hard or think about it. But if I am doing a full glam long wear look, then I will use primer with these. And similar with the previous two shadows, I will put up some pictures as well featuring these in entire looks. So there's one with Titania, which is the look that I showcased in that haul. So if you're interested in seeing how I got that look, definitely check out that video. And then there's another look with Anjelica that basically is just this plus some eyeliner and plus this in the lower lash line. I'm actually wearing the same sweater dress in that look, so you can kind of get a sense of what the vibe would be if I just finished this up. And before I wash this off, let me also just show you guys how this is looking. So you can see they have kind of dried down, but not 100%. So there is a little bit of a smear when I kind of try to get them off. So it's not going to be like 100% budge proof, but as you can see, it still is fairly budge proof considering I put a thick layer on my arm and these haven't been sitting for a super long time. And we're back for the final look. So in case you guys are wondering why I look a little bit different, I actually did take off all of my makeup and applied some different products because I was having some issues with the combination of base products that I was using, and so everything was starting to look a little bit greasy, and I do have an event to go to later, so I want my makeup to actually look good. So the products linked down below will be what I have currently on, which is a really good combination that I know is going to work very well throughout the day. So for this final look, I wanted to play around a little bit more and set up this look with some matte shadows and then go in with Anjelica all over the lid so you guys can see how you can integrate these liquid shadows in a more intricate makeup look. So I have a couple Natasha Denona palettes that I thought would go pretty well with Anjelica. So I'm going to start out with my Retro palette. And for this one, I'm going to go in pretty simply. I'm just going to take a bit of this Mod shade over here, this white shade, to kind of set up the look. Just going to sweep a bit of this along the brow bone area, just because we don't really have a super light matte in the other palette. So this is just going to set the outskirts of my eyes, and I do have my Pat McGrath eye primer on right now because, as I mentioned, for kind of more intense looks where I really want to have longevity, I do find using some primer helps a lot. And now I'm going to go into this transition shade over here from my Glam Light palette. This is one of my favorite palettes because I find all of the shades in this palette are just really great for an everyday neutral look. So really you can use this kind of matte shadow with any of the eyeshadows from Lisa Eldridge and they'll look really beautiful paired together. Since, at least for my skin tone, this palette's just very complementary. So I'm just using my Rephr 15 Mini to just set this up, put a little bit of this in the crease area. Overall today I'm going for glam, but still kind of natural looking. And then to add a little bit of depth, I'm going into Amara from Retro. So this is going to add a little bit more burgundy to the look, which I think will go well with this sweater dress that I have on. I'm just going to concentrate this in the outer portions of my eye. And then also sweep it a bit in the crease. You can tell I'm trying to leave blank the area where I'm going to go in with the liquid shadow, both so it adheres better and also just because I plan on completely covering up that area, so there's no point to put a bunch of mattes there. And then to deepen things, I'm going into Opart and concentrating this just on the outer portion of my eyes. And then one thing I personally really like to do, especially with Natasha Denona shadows, is to go over them kind of in the reverse order of what I just did. So right now I'm going in with Amara just to further deepen things up. Part of why I'm doing this also is because once I put that liquid shadow on, I really don't want to disturb it that much. And so I want to make sure that I just fully set up my mattes right now so that once the liquid goes on, we're just kind of done with the look instead of going back and tweaking the mattes, because I don't want to accidentally wipe off some of the shimmers later. So you can see just going back in with Amara sort of helped a bit with that blend. And similarly, I'm going back into that transition shade just on the edges and using that just to haze things out. And I would typically do this with multiple brushes, but I'm feeling kind of lazy today, so all of this is just with that Rephr 15 Mini. And then on the lower lash line, I'm going to repeat these steps with transition on my Rephr 2 Mini. And I'm going to just sweep this all along the lower lash line, being quite generous with this. Now going in with Amara, I'm going to use that just to add a little bit more depth to that lower lash line, sweeping that throughout. And then finally taking a little bit of Opart, I'm just going to run that in the outer portion of the lower lash line. Alrighty, so now that everything's set up, let's go in with Anjelica. So I'm just gonna sweep this along the lid like this. And then with that Rephr 33 brush that I mentioned earlier, I'm just going to lightly spread this, kind of keeping it where I want it. Doing the same on the other side, just dabbing that on. And on the edges, I'm just kind of lightly sweeping the brush so that we don't have any harshness. There we go, so that's actually pretty opaque already. I might just leave it there. That was pretty quick and easy. And then for the lower lash line, I'm just going to run a little bit of that Rephr 2 Mini into the liquid shadow, and then just sweep that along the lower lash line. You can see you can actually get quite a graphic look as well if you wanted to use this as liner, especially for the deeper shades. That can be quite helpful. Today I'm just using it as a highlighting shade. So here we have the eyeshadow on the lids. You can see just how beautifully reflective this formula is. And here we have the final look with eyeliner. What do you guys think? So zooming out, hopefully this gives you guys a better sense of the overall look. I really like this. I like how easy it was to put together and just how beautiful and multi-dimensional this shade looks. It just adds a lot of interest to the eyes, and I didn't get any fallout, of course, from the liquid shadow. I got a little bit from some of these mattes, but that's what's really nice about this formulation. You can just slap it on the lids, super easy to blend out, and you don't have to worry about glitter fallout all over the place. So to sum up, overall, I have been really loving these liquid Lurex eyeshadows, much to my own surprise. So for context, I got Anais like maybe a year ago around the time that the Pat McGrath liquid eyeshadows came out. I bought this and one of the Pat McGrath and filmed a comparison video. So if you guys are curious about those two formulas, definitely check out that video. But I really did not have high hopes because liquid eyeshadows did not seem up my alley at all. And so for a long time, I only had this one, but I found myself just reaching for it all the time on days where I just couldn't be bothered to whip out my makeup brushes to clean them, where I just wanted something really quick and easy. Oftentimes after work, if I was gonna go meet a friend or something and just wanted to get a little bit dolled up, but like a 5-minute makeup look, this was perfect. And so now with these additional shades in my collection, I feel like I'm gonna get even more use out of these just because it's really fun playing with these. Even though I mostly use them for one and dones, it's just very satisfying to see how they quickly glide on the lids, quickly set, and then the look they provide is just really mesmerizing. So I always find myself staring at the shimmers in the mirror and just seeing how they look a little bit different in different lighting. So at least for me, these are my current favorite liquid eyeshadows and some of my favorite eyeshadows in general in terms of the ones that I'm just reaching for on an everyday basis. I would love to hear though in the comments what you guys think about liquid eyeshadows, if you guys have any favorite formulas, and if you've tried this formula from Lisa Eldridge, please let me know your thoughts. And I'd also be intrigued to hear if you have a favorite shade, because even though I really want to just stop now with these 4, I am tempted by Emily and some of the other shades on her website just because I do just find these so fun to use for some reason. So who knows, I might pick up some more in the future as well. But that's it for today's video. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!